I was only 17 when my world began to crumble. My name is Ethan Cole, and I'm here to tell you a story, not of glory, but of redemption. I promise you, if you stay with me till the end, you'll never look at your mistakes the same way again. I grew up in a quiet neighborhood in Ohio. My parents were kind, simple people who believed life was all about honesty and hard work. But I was young and stupid. I wanted things faster. I wanted respect, power, money, everything that seemed impossible for a kid like me. That's when I met Rico, a street-smart guy from the wrong side of town. He was older, drove a fancy car, always had cash in his pocket. I looked up to him like a brother, and that's where my downfall began. It started small, skipping school, hanging out at night, stealing a few things from stores. My mom cried, my dad shouted, but I didn't care. I thought I was untouchable. Until one night, everything changed. Rico and I were supposed to just scare a man who owed someone money. I didn't even realize he had a gun until I heard the shot. I froze. The man fell. The blood hit the pavement like reality hitting my chest. I was arrested the same night. The courtroom felt colder than any winter I had known. My mother's eyes were swollen from crying. My father couldn't even look at me. The judge said, 15 years, state prison. At that moment, I died inside. When the metal doors closed behind me, I felt the air leave my body. The smell of sweat, fear, and regret filled my lungs. I was surrounded by men who had lost everything: their freedom, their dreams, their families. The first few months were hell. Fights, threats, loneliness. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't forgive myself. Then one night, an old man named Jeremiah sat beside me in the prison yard. He'd been inside for 27 years, and he looked at me and said, "Son, you think your life is over because of one mistake, but prison doesn't end a man. It tests him." Those words hit me harder than any punch. From that night, I started to change. I began reading books. I joined a prison education program. I wrote letters to my parents, even though they never replied. I started talking to God, not asking for freedom, but for strength. Years passed. I became a tutor in the prison school. I helped other inmates learn to read and write. I began to feel something I hadn't felt in years: purpose. Jeremiah and I spent hours talking about life, choices, and redemption. One day he told me, "Ethan, you'll walk out of here someday. When you do, promise me, don't waste your freedom. Turn your pain into purpose." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept repeating his words in my mind. Turn your pain into purpose. By my 12th year inside, I had earned a high school diploma and started taking community college courses through a prison program. I even began speaking to new inmates, telling them what I once wished someone had told me. But nothing could prepare me for what came next. In my 14th year, Jeremiah passed away in his sleep. I found him in the yard the next morning, sitting under the same tree where he used to talk to me. I cried like a child. I felt like I had lost the only person who believed in me. But the next week, when his belongings were cleared, a guard handed me a small notebook. Inside was a note written in shaky handwriting. "Ethan, freedom starts in the mind, not outside the walls. You already found it." I held that notebook every night until the day I finally walked out, 15 years later. When I finally stepped outside those prison gates, I didn't even know how to breathe. 15 years. 15 years of silence, shame, and pain, all behind me now. But the world had changed, and so had I. The streets looked different. The people moved faster. I stood there, holding a small bag with my letters and Jeremiah's notebook inside. No family came to pick me up. No friends waited, just the cold morning air and the sound of traffic in the distance. I walked to a nearby diner and ordered a cup of coffee, my first as a free man. When the waitress asked, "Rough night?" I smiled and said, "A rough 15 years." That day, I made a decision. I wouldn't let my past define me. I found work at a construction site. The pay was low, the hours long, but every nail I hammered felt like building a new life. At night, I'd sit in a tiny rented room, reading Jeremiah's words again and again. Freedom starts in the mind. Months went by. Slowly, I saved some money. I volunteered at a youth center nearby, talking to kids who were on the same dangerous path I once took. I told them my story, not to scare them, but to show them that redemption is real. One boy named Lucas reminded me of myself, angry, lost, but full of potential. He listened to every word I said. One evening, after the session, he asked, "Mr. Ethan, do you really believe people like us can change?" I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "I don't believe it, son. I've lived it." That night, for the first time in years, I felt peace. Because I realized Jeremiah was right. The prison walls were gone long before my release. A few years later, I started my own small nonprofit, Second Chance Foundation. We help ex-convicts learn job skills, find housing, and rebuild their lives. The same people society had forgotten, I made it my mission to remember them. The media picked up my story. They called me the man who turned prison into purpose. But I wasn't a hero. I was just a broken man who decided to stand again. One day, I visited the old prison as a guest speaker. Walking through those gates again, I felt my knees shake. The same smell, the same walls, but this time I was free inside and out. I looked at the crowd of inmates and said, "You may be locked away today, but your story isn't over. You can't change your past, but you can rewrite your future. Start here. Start now." Some cried, some smiled, some just listened in silence. But I knew in that moment Jeremiah's words had finally come full circle. Now, every morning when I wake up, I look at his notebook on my desk, old, worn, and filled with his wisdom. And I whisper the same words I live by every single day. Turn your pain into purpose. Because if one broken soul like me can rise again, so can anyone.